started, you could go ahead and pin me, Linda. And I want to, I'm going to start out with some talking about selecting your image and cropping and finding your composition. When we go taking photographs, and I'm going to actually share screen and start with my photos. Go right to my photos. Okay. All right. So, you know, we go to Italy and our cameras go wild. There's so many beautiful things to photograph, and you know, I think we all have. If you've, anytime you go traveling, you just pick up the camera and you shoot and shoot and shoot. You know, back in the days when we had to pay for film, and every shot cost us money. We were more judicious in choosing our images. You know, we slowed down, we looked a little bit more carefully and waited until everything looked right, and then we'd click off a frame or maybe two. But we wouldn't do 20 of the same thing like we tend to do now, just because it's free and it's cheap. And so I feel like we see less these days because we're not slowing down and composing and using the camera as that first edit. We're just snapping shots. We're just taking pictures, 7 or 8 pictures of this fellow as he's going by instead of just waiting for one. Again, I have about 7 or 8 pictures of this, and they're all basically the same except the ripples moved and the people moved. So I'm going to stop at this one for a second because this is, I want to talk about this piece. So you can see my cursor moving around?
Yeah.
All righty.
Yeah.
So this is, you know, I know artists that could take a photograph like this and could do an absolutely gorgeous painting. This is actually Burano, which is an island in the lagoon. It's not in Venice itself, but it's in the series of islands that are there. And it's known for its colorful houses and canals throughout. And I know artists that could do something with this. That tends to not be my comfort zone. I tend to like things that are a little bit simpler shapes. There's an awful lot of stuff going on in this. But first thing I want you to take a look at is to take a look at the sharpness, about the focus. You know, take a look at this woman's net bag. Take a look at all the junk in here. You know, take a look at the detail on the people here, the detail here, the detail here. You can read the lettering on this without even having to enlarge it, all the way back to what's going on in here. You know, if I enlarge this, oh gosh, I don't know if I can. Yeah, you know, if I enlarge this, you can still see these faces. You know, take a look at that copy. And the thing that we do as artists these days when we're working from photographs is we tend to, and so everything is sharp focus. Now, if you and I were to actually look at this net bag, these people's faces would already start going out of focus. This would not be competing detail back here. This would be completely out of focus. And if we were using a regular camera, an old-fashioned camera, 35 millimeter, where you had lens aperture and you had you were dealing with f-stops and you were dealing with depth of field, you would sit there and you would focus the camera on whatever area you wanted, and everything else would go soft. that's how we see, not like this. And so we really have to keep that in mind when we're doing our paintings these days. Otherwise, why not just put the photograph up on your wall? You know, there's the artist's hand, the artist's eye, the artist's interpretation. So get off my soapbox on that. But getting back to this image, there are a whole bunch of paintings in here that I see. For instance, look at that. You know, looking for simpler shapes. That's way back in here, way back in this area here. So if you wanted to do you could crop in and just do, you know, this becomes about these chimneys. Look at all these different shapes and colors of chimneys. It's very interesting. This piece becomes a little bit more about this thoroughway right here, and it's really good at doing architecture. You wanted to do this kind of passage of light and dark shadows with, look at the blue here that's repeated down in the boats, that's repeated up in here. There's an interesting pattern of this blue that moves through this painting or this photograph, this cropping. This now becomes about the water, more about the water. Not a huge fan of this color. And also this awful lot of blank, empty space. At the same time, that quiet area is a nice counterpoint to all the detail that happens in here. And now, because there's a person standing here, doesn't mean you have to draw all these people, doesn't mean you have to draw all these boats. I actually prefer this cropping better, because now this becomes more, it's a little quieter, and it is about the boat, or about the water, and about the interesting pattern of ripples that are happening in through this water. And it's an interesting pink and blue composition, pink, blue, and gray. So those are, you know, those all come from this craziness. So if you've got photographs of Venice, or you're going to use the ones that I've sent you, consider spending the time cropping down, finding a composition that you like. I gave you a lot of variations. I gave you a lot of different types of photos to work from. But a lot of times what I find is that people, when they have the time to paint, they immediately say, oh God, I've got time to paint. I'm gonna throw my canvas up or my paper up, and I'm just gonna jump into it. And they don't take the time to do some of the preliminary work in advance. And what I have found, and those of you who've studied with me have heard this over and over again, but I have found my sketches speak to me. Slowing down and preparatory work, whether I'm out on location using something like this. Do you still see a little window of me on the side? Okay, so when you know, going out and instead of the camera using your viewfinder, it's the same thing. Slow down, finding those compositions, doing those sketches, make for much better paint. And you don't hit that point where it's not working, it's not coming out, that you're not seeing on your paper what you've got in your mind's eye. So Liz, we'll go past these.
Can I interrupt one second? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Do you have both of your microphones on? Because I'm hearing a little echo.
Do I have both? No, I don't.
Because I see that in the thing it says that you've not muted one of them. And there's just a little bit of a feedback.
Well, there's a little bit of feedback. Is everybody getting feedback?
No. Yeah.
Okay. I'll go with those guys. Yeah, I have the computer muted. I have my camera is where I'm speaking off of my
All right.
off of this. Yeah, I don't want to fool with it. So this is actually Venice as well. Linda was with us last year. Had a wonderful tour, and this is go ahead. This is behind the scenes. This is behind one of those walls that you pass by along these along the canals. And who knew? Oh, Linda, do you know what this building is?
It was a private home that had been, for the Biennale, they had that art exhibit in it, where the sensory exhibit. Wasn't that it? I think that's what I remember. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think even inside there's another courtyard. There's a courtyard inside of here, but this
Yeah.
this
Crazy.
passageway here leads out to the gate. Now the only you know, this would be a fine painting if you don't want to paint crowds and you don't want to paint water. You want to get into your greens and all that. For me, what was problematic was this big dark mass over here. You know, you start thinking about painting that, and so I started doing a little bit of work with cropping. And so now this is an interesting patterns. And you're always looking for patterns of big shapes. So you've got a darker shape here, and you have a darker shape here with the architecture. And then it gets up into some interesting mid values up in here, the light here. But then you've got this dark shape with this bright light that's hitting here. And squint down, you can see the light coming across, and then it comes up into this tree. And looking for simple shapes, looking for, if you start sketching and you have too many shapes, then maybe you need to try cropping your image, try seeing it as seeing simpler shapes, because when you're doing your sketches, what you might find out is, wow, that's going to be an awful lot of work. I don't know that I want to do that. And then this was my favorite cropping of this. And all of a sudden, take a look, you know, this now becomes about this statue here. But take a look at the movement. It comes across here, it goes up here, your eye stops here, but then the movement of these trees brings you over here, and then your eye tends to come back down in, and you just circle right here. Your eye go over and investigate this or this or this. You just stay right here, and that's a very arresting composition. It doesn't let your eye go off the image and start looking at another painting. You know, it basically is saying, look at me. And that makes for a very strong composition. Take a look again, look at that versus that. Your eye doesn't necessarily know what to look at here, except for this pathway that leads you up to the door. And then the door's in the dark, and it's like, it's not very rewarding. Whereas this is a very rewarding composition. Which leads me to this, which again is a very typical snapshot that you would take. You see a boat going by, you pick up the camera, click, 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 click. And this is the one that I'm going to actually stay with. I took this image and started to investigate different croppings on it. So wasn't too sure. I did croppings. Actually, I did the croppings on the or 7 or 8 different croppings on the computer. Could not figure out which one I wanted to do. And So I went to my sketchbook, and I've got the sketches to show you. And I just keep harping on the wisdom of about it. I learned so much by taking the time to slow down and to do my sketches. So I did, these are the 5 sketches that I decided to do out of those 8 different photographic croppings. And so basically that's this. Just taking a look at big shapes and color, breaking it down to, I've got 3 different markers for value, a black Sharpie, thin Sharpie for my line work. I do the line work first just to get the composition on a flat piece of paper and to start drawing it and feeling it. And then I apply the value to see where the patterns are, to see where the big shapes are. And as I was doing this, the one thing that came up in my mind was, oh God, what am I going to do with all these windows? I don't want to paint all those windows. You know, there's an awful lot, but you can't not paint them. They have to be there. I don't know how I want to deal with those. This area here, which had all those people and had a lot of detail, I could very easily knock down, you know, into a darker value so you don't see it. The other thing that happened here is all of a sudden, this is right smack dab in the middle of the painting. And I could almost see, if you split this in half, you can almost have one painting over here and another painting over here, because this is interesting. But I think it just becomes a little bit too chaotic, too much. I don't want to do that. So I've cropped it down here to this. I've gotten rid of all that extraneous information over here. I still have this distance. And look what I've done with the windows. I've really gotten rid of the windows over here. And this actually tends to be more about all the water. Look at all the ripples that are going on in here. That I could really get into. There's one problem with this composition, however, and it's just a matter of where the photograph and when the photograph was taken. Could he just be back a little bit? Because see where the prow of this boat, that light area there, which has got this very, this is such a iconic image of Venice, with this kind of a sawtooth edge here that happens with this metal edge, but you can't see it because, oops, sorry, because I got the wrong button there. Because it is a tangent. This is a tangent where this edge, this light, is actually interfering with this edge right here of the light that's coming down along the light versus the dark here. You squint down, you really hardly see this. So I could move that piece of the boat back and shorten the boat a little bit. However, I get very concerned about, this is a very odd shaped boat, and I'm not too sure I want to start playing around with changing the shape of the boat to bring that back in there. And I'm not going to move the entire boat over, because I like where his head is, how it intersects the window, and where the back end is sitting. So instead of moving this over, I could extend this building a little bit and extend this dark shadow just a little bit and bring it over so that this is surrounded by black, dark water all around, as opposed to having light on one side and dark on the other. So that's an easy fix. Let me show you my next cropping. So that's, see what happens, you know, look what happened here. That just all got absorbed here, and although there's a really nice, I really like this piece because I love this movement of this angled boat coming up and going into the background instead of everything being flat, static, looking straight on to this building. There's this interesting movement of this boat going and turning around the corner. So that is a possibility for me to paint. Then I decided to go really tight, and which I originally liked a lot. I thought, well, I could bring a few of those tendrils down a little bit further. But when I did the drawing, it just left me cold. I can't say why necessarily, but it's too tight, and I've just lost some of the sense of Venice. The only thing here is this guy's got a striped shirt. This could be, I don't know, it's probably still Venice, but it didn't speak to me. I did not want to spend time with that. Now I've moved to a square, and again, I've got all this beautiful water here. And as I'm starting to look at this, I'm like, all of a sudden I notice this light streak where the light is coming underneath the boat and the light is coming over here. And I'm really interested all of a sudden in this light. And I did this drawing. Again, something's missing over here for me. I did it again as moving over a little bit where I don't have that dark edge on the other side. And I've got this. And to be honest, I know which one I'm going to do between that one and this one. And they both celebrate. Actually, they both celebrate this light streak coming through here. And I'm making a decision right now while I'm talking to you. The other reason I'm going to go to a square instead of that horizontal one that had a lot of the water is that I have a square piece of paper. I couldn't get both a long horizontal and my reference image up here. So I'm going to go with the square. And even though this is right smack dab in the middle, I like to kind of break rules. I know they say don't put that in the middle, but then there's all this information over here. There's this, Nate, take a look at the angle of the shadow, which really mimics the angle of this. Diagonals are extremely powerful. So this is where I'm going to play. And I did not know this until I did these sketches, until I took the time to put together this page of sketches. This just saved me. I probably would have gone with, I think I was thinking this. And when I did these other sketches, this just left me cold. This was where my first thought was. So I just saved myself a lot of time by actually coming through and doing these. So before I go up to my paper, does anybody have any questions about what I just showed you?
Not
No?
so good, no. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So, all right, now I'm going to switch to, Linda, we'll switch over to this view of
You just
my
have
paper.
to stop sharing screen and you'll be there. If you stop sharing your screen, Liz, it will be on your paper.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I have to. That's on me. Yep.
That's okay.
Thank you. That's why you're here.
Exactly.
All right. So now I've taken and put this up here. Oh, I couldn't do this without you. There's no way. And I like to put my crop marks on everything. That's not the image I'm going to use. So I'll put my crops on here. When I go out painting, this is a new one, so I don't have the crops on there, but I would have the crop marks on there, and I put them on my sketchbook as well. So, and I do not see, I always put the corners down, always put the corners in. And then I do halves first. I don't do thirds. Can you see, am I in your way? I think you can see okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a little low. And then I do quarters. Okay, go away. There we go. I want that to go black. All right, now I'll do the same thing with my board. And I like the idea of doing this freehand without bringing out a measuring tape or a ruler, because if something goes off a little bit, you know what, that's part of the artist's hand in the painting, so that it's not always exactly perfect. I'm not going to repeat my sketch again, but the sketch has, I'm working with simple shapes. So I'm going to go and repeat those simple. So my my water line is a little bit below half. I'll throw that in. Let's see where that doorway is actually a little bit off to the side. So it's the top of that arch is about right here. I'll put that down. And then this one side here, and then this side here is about right there. So with that, I could actually come up and draw that arch in by having that point, and that point. Let's see, is that right? That's right, that's right. Okay, actually this water line wants to drop down a little bit more. I'm seeing that at this point now, because this needs to come down further, because that's that platform that sits in there. There's actually a metal grate in there. I don't need to get into that. So I have up here, I have my balcony, sits right about here, comes over to about there. This window comes off of, right off of here, and it comes over to about there, maybe even a little narrower, and it sits right here. It sits right here. So that's that window. The top of this lintel here comes over on top of this as well, which means it's going to be at the same height over here. And this one comes down a little bit on that side. This is going to be the same height here. And this is about halfway. And then this window is sitting up here like that. Now let's place this boat in. I need to find this point. This point here where the boat, the back end of the boat, the stern, stops. That is what I call a waypoint. And that is an important, this is the waypoint. This is this point here. I get my my X and my Y coordinates, and I figure out where that is, and I lock that in. And then I'll come over here, figure out where this is, and then see how it turns right here. So this is coming down at an angle. It turns at this point. So I'm coming down at an angle to about here. Then I'm going like this, and it's starting to curve up. That's how you can get, by using these points, by marking where these points are, you can get your drawing in and try to get your drawing right. And then this, actually, this just kind of swings down and up like that. Maybe even comes down a little bit further and then swings up. That's too far. The figure here, it comes down. One leg is this way, one leg is this way. Yeah. And then he's got his oar, which comes through, and you get a little bit of it right there. That's all I need to do for my drawing. I don't need to get into, well, maybe I'm going to change a little. I'm going to go across here with, this is where that light changes. And let me go ahead and pull down some of these shadows. This is the shadow of this down in here. There's this shadow and this coming down through here. And then this one here comes down into this area here and here and starts to fall apart. So those are the shapes that I need to put in just to give me some guidance for my underpainting. So now I'm going to, any questions at this point?
No, that's good. Thank you.
Doing okay? All right. Architecture, if you want to make architecture work so that it's not too complicated, think about going straight on to something like this. So this is just a 1-point perspective. It's pretty flat. You don't have any disappearing lines. You don't have any vanishing points off to the side. So it's a good way to, if you're relatively new to it, if you have problems with perspective, this is a good way to deal with it. All right, so with an underpainting, anybody here not have done underpainting? Everybody's always done it? Okay. By the way, I'm working on UART 500, and it is mounted to gator board with a dry mount press. So this this board can easily be moved around and positioned and carried and all that sort of thing. Has anybody worked on the new paper called Lux Archival?
No.
It's Dakota has it. I've bought some. I have not worked on it yet. I'm hearing a lot of good things from people about it. Like it might be similar to the old Wallace.
Wow.
So it's got a really nice buttery surface, and it's also will take alcohol, which the Pastel Premier, which is the old Wallace paper, the Pastel Premier does not take alcohol wash. I prefer to work with you can use water on Pastel Premier, but the problem is that it's I like to work a little quicker than the water takes too long to dry for me. All right, so now we're going to move into doing the underpainting. Several different ways of doing this. I had thought about, actually, I've been playing around a little bit with some inks and some permanent colors. These are actually, these two colors together, golden, these are airbrush inks. And phthalo, turquoise, and burnt sienna, and they make a beautiful mid-tone, kind of like my brown paper. And I could see doing something like that, except I don't want brown under this water. With all the water, you really want to underpaint the color of the water. The bricks would be fine to do that, but I want to paint the actual color of the water, the darks in here, so I can put the lights on top. So I'm going to do an underpainting with this that is, underpaintings are to bring these big shapes up to the correct value and to have a color applied to them that you kind of want to have peeking through, that could be in underlying layers, but that enrich the painting. So I do not underpaint the exact color that I'm looking at, except when it comes to water, because in water, I want to put down the exact color in these dark shapes so that I can lay these lights down on top of them, and they'll lay down clean, and they will not get, they won't pick up any other colors, and especially a darker value from underneath. Does that all make sense to you?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to start with my darkest darks. Now, folks, with the photographs I've given you, especially if you've gone and printed them out, recognize that every time they go a generation away from the original, that the darks, you're going to lose detail, and the darks are going to get darker. Lights will tend to blow out a little bit. So in this case, this is absolute pitch black here. This is absolute pitch black. I'm going to back off a value. I'm not going to put that down in black. I do not own black. Okay. I do know that these hulls are actually lacquered in black paint, but there's probably going to be a little reflective quality to this, and this is I'm going to back off on how dark that gets. I'm not going to use black. So let's see. I'm going to throw in the boat. Let's see what that looks like. That looks pretty black, but that's actually a dark blue. So I'm going to put this down instead. This is, it's actually a dark gray, and I will put that as well. I'm going to throw now back here. I'm going to warm it up a little bit, I think, and go into, oof, got to pull these. So my pastels tend to reside in boxes like this, in color families. It's always an evolving, so, you know, my blues, they move around a lot. This is why everything has to be tied down. So this is, I want it warmer than that. That's better. This is actually, you can't see it, but this is a brown. And I'll just throw it up to here as well. I'm going to throw a little bit of warmth in there too. All right, these guys over here, I'm putting these in brown. Some of this could come along the base here, along the base in here as well. And actually, I'm gonna, this is some of that. Oh, those are the chairs. Look at that. I didn't realize what they were. I couldn't see them. And throw a little bit of dark on there. Now, the across here, I have, I'm just gonna do this there. And now I have this underneath here. I have this shape of the shadow that's coming across. And I have to figure out what, first of all, what color do I want to have underneath these bricks? How do I want to create these bricks? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a color that is a little bit, it's the dark areas. You see that? All the dark areas that are in here. I'm going to throw down a color here. I'm actually going to pretty much go right over the fellow because it's darker down here. The water creeps up, and so these areas, and it's so sad, these bricks are really starting to fall apart. There's a little bit of that dark in that area. There's starting to see some of the variations in these bricks. There's again a and what am I going to do for that shadow? I'm just trying to figure that one out. I'm going to go with a darker, and I always use softer pastels when I'm that is way too dark. It's not the value I want. I want something that's a little bit lighter than that. Oh, maybe it's this one here. What's that? That's not so bad. So I could use this. It goes on here. There's a shadow that comes across here, 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 here. Comes across here, and then down underneath here. And it's to here. All this, all the white, I can do that with my pastel later, but now it gets darker up underneath here. So I do want this value to get darker underneath this area here. And this is all going to be this darker value. There's a little something over there. And then there's this peachy tone behind these bricks. Let's see, I think that's pretty good. I'll throw that in the rest of this, although there's a little bit more orange in some of these areas. Okay, and I pull out my pastels and I keep them down in front of me. And then there's all this flora that's happening in there. I'm just going to throw in a value that's kind of a darker warm tone. No, something that's a little bit darker. All right, this is sitting underneath all those flowers. This is for the most part the darker area. Those. All right, this fellow's face, I may want to put a mark where his head is. Now the water. So up here, I'm looking at what are the tones underneath these bricks that I just want to, because I'm going to come in and put the lights on top. I want to lock my darks in underneath. I missed one thing up here. I want to put this in up there. All right. Now, when it comes down to the water, I really want to lock in the exact color that I'm looking at right here. So hold on a second while I switch my pastels. So I'm not only interested in locking in my color, but also my values. So this is lovely in this area here, but there's also a green tone to that water. That works in here as well. It gets really dark in this area, so I have to find my darker. That is kind of, that's really nice. That goes down into here, maybe even a little bit. I don't know if you could hear the difference between those two pastels. This one has a lot more phthalo blue in it, and it's really scratchy. Can you hear that? And difference between those two? That's these, I know Terry Ludwig right now is having a double of a time because he really wants to make a phthalo blue that is usable, and he can't figure it out. And honestly, he's probably not going to figure it out because this is something that through millennia, artists have wanted to try to do that, and they are not able to because it's just too, the pigment itself, the pigment is just too hard. Okay, so this is back in here. And I'm looking in each case, I'm looking at what is the darkest dark underneath, and it gets much lighter in this area. And, you know, I'm almost not quite there, maybe here. And my darkest darks, I'm still looking for a darker. I could maybe throw a little bit, that's some of this, just to get some, it'll blend down. And then I almost can't listen to it. It's so strong. It's just, and I do want to get some more of a green up into here. Now, having a hard time finding the green I'm looking for. Maybe it's this. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? That's better. That's actually better. How's the color looking for you guys? Is it okay?
Yeah, good.
Because I know that's been a complaint that a lot of people have with some of the online stuff, is that the colors are just not great. All right, it gets a little lighter in here. It's not quite as dark throughout. It gets dark through here. Ooh, that's the wrong one. There's some blues in through here. All right. So I'm probably, that's about all I want to do with this, is to put that down. And that color, I'm sorry I didn't find it earlier. You know, if I want to, I could come into an area like this and knock out something that's gotten too dark, like that one's too dark, and come back in and throw this paler green down, which I found, you know, a little later in the process. I don't know whether you have the ability to do a screenshot. If you want to do a screenshot of this before I lock it down, Linda is recording this so that it'll be available, I think, for about a week.
Yes,
So you
I'll
can come
send
back
everyone-
in and you can.
I'll send everyone a link after the class. So if you want to take a screenshot, you can do Command-Shift-3, and it automatically takes your whole screen on a Mac.
Now that's on the Mac. I don't know, what about a PC?
That I don't know.
Just screen grab. There's a key that says screen grab.
Okay.
Or print, yeah. Liz, I'm using my iPad to watch you, and I am taking photos of the screen with my phone, and they're really clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
That works
Excellent.
really well.
I'm doing it with my little iPad mini, and they're coming out quite well.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah, that's not a, actually, I might just take a screenshot myself because it's kind of a nice little picture there right now. What the heck? Okay. Now I'm working with isopropyl rubbing alcohol. Good luck finding this baby these days.
Use vodka.
It's like, yeah, I know. It's yeah, I have used vodka. Vodka works too. My brushes, my favorites are the Simply Simmons. They're flats, so I can manipulate them. Although I have to say, I've been playing a little bit with, with some other types of shapes of brushes. I've used these forever. And just during my, incarceration here during COVID, I'm starting to take a look at art materials that have been laying around and saying, well, why don't I try this? And I've been doing a lot of experimenting. So it's a good time to be doing things like that. I've been, going back to my basics and checking things out. With the alcohol, if you have a choice, first of all, get the isopropyl. Don't get ethyl alcohol. Ethyl alcohol, I think it has acetone in it. You don't want to be breathing that. And I find the 70% dries slower. It's 70% isopropyl, 30% water. If you get the 91%, oftentimes I find that it pretty much dries before you get it and you're able to work with it. So first thing I'm going to do is come back to my, I tend to not, you see the white area here around this shape. I don't draw, if I have, in the same thing, I have not taken these dark shapes all the way out because I want to, I don't want to put too much pastel down, too much dark pastel. Plus, I want to be able to draw into the space and to the shape I want with the alcohol and my brush. I don't want to have a thick, dark line. Then it tends to be even harder to get away from being edge oriented. Your edges become too strong. So I'll come in here and I'll take this and I'll try to move it where I actually want it. See, this comes out a little bit more before it curves around. And where's that point? That point is over here. Where's my quarter? Wow, it's right there. I don't know what happened to it, but this comes down to here. So this is kind of coming straight like that. It's wider here. This is a first pass at the shape. It gets a little thinner up here. I can deal with that later. And then this comes here, here, Move that dark down into this area. That's way too thick. I can make these adjustments later. But try the best to get an approximation of where these shapes are. This is this fellow here. And, you know, his arms, his body's going this way, the head's here. I come around and try to get my darks in. I don't want to be too, I'm going to a larger brush here. I need this arch to be a little bit wider, trying my best to get it so it looks even from side to side. There's a break here, break here. It looks awfully black, especially going to look very black to you, but it is not. This is a bit of a broken edge along here, comes up to here. I'm moving it around. Then there's this dark space that's in through here. This is an old decrepit building. It's been around for a long time. So there are imperfections. Now, this one has got to get a little bit wider, and I need to, based upon his head, I realize that it needs to come over on this side here. And I'm actually going to throw some of that dark underneath because it's a little darker. I didn't get that over there. And then this is here. This is here. No drips. No drips. Oh, that's Richard's. That's
yeah, we know.
Richard loves his drips. He does
Gotta
beautiful
change
job.
my style. It's the serendipitous drips.
Yeah. And so here, what I'm doing to get this, taking my alcohol, I'm going down and I'm cleaning the brush off before I go to the next one. If I were to move it like this, it would tend to get, see how it's starting to get too dark? It gets a little polluted. If I do it just once, clean it. Now they are kind of narrow at the tops. I could come across like this and I could make it a little darker there. This is where the flowers are. Flowers are coming down like that. So I'm just going to, this kind of moves around a little bit. I'm still working from dark to light. That might be, I've got a lot of dark in those bricks there. And actually there's I don't really like that. This is not a great, it's not playing well when I wash it down with alcohol. So I'm just getting rid of as much of it as I can. That was not, it doesn't melt very nicely. So I'm just getting rid of it. This is still going to work fine through here. Let's come in, and I'm concerned that my shadow areas are, the value's fine here. I think this is too dark. So I'm now doing my shadows. Remember, this goes a little darker underneath here and gets lighter as it comes down. This is darker in here. Here, kind of comes up, comes across there. All right, I can put some of that there. I'm going to go back to some of that up here. Now, let's see what happens. I've got this here. Yeah, I think some of this is a little bit too dark. So I'm going to take this here and I'm just wiping it down a little bit so there's not as much pastel in those areas, because that value, sometimes you almost need to try it out with, when you wipe it down with alcohol and see how dark it's going to get. So I don't want as much of it. I would rather if they were, the values were getting, this value and this value were getting too close to each other. So by wiping this down, the values are not as close. So what, oh, blue? Where did that come from? I didn't clean my glass terribly well. That was from another painting. So even still, there's a lot of, and I kind of like the, it looks rather beat up, which and I'm going to be putting all my lights down on top of this. So, and I want a little bit through there. So I'm just going to, that I didn't want. All right. So that's all fine. I can clean all this up. I can fix all this later. Now let's get down into the water, which is so much fun. So again, I'm going to lock my darks down first. That's these areas here.
Hey, Liz.
Yeah.
Are you using kind of like 2 things of alcohol so that
Nope.
your brown, nope, it's all the same. Okay.
All the same. Yeah. 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 Let me, here, let me just show you. If I were to take this alcohol right now, which I've been working with, and put it down. See, there's very little pigment. Can you see that? That's all the pigment that's in there. So I'll sometimes do a workshop and I'll have the same, I'll use the same alcohol for like 3 days. It may have gotten a little dark in my water. I'm gonna have to cover a lot of this up. That's okay. I can cover some of this. I can cover a lot of this up. I'm basically trying to get my dark shapes that are sitting underneath these areas here to start setting up. And then this is the reflection of the boat here. And I'm going to let this dry for a few moments while I go up here and play around a little bit with some of these shapes. This is the stuff in the boat. And it's a little darker underneath here. A little darker in here. A little darker here. Still, and see, I like to let areas of the underpainting dry so that I can, because I like to preserve some of these edges that start to happen. And I could even come in here with my smaller brush and start to wiggle things around a little bit. And this is lighter over here. Now, that's still wet. I want to wait till that dries. This is pretty dry here. See, that's all completely dry right in that area. So I'll come in with my big brush here, clean it off as best possible. And I can come in, oh, doesn't do what I want, but well, it's blending into, it's filling in a little bit more than I wanted it to. Some of those darks were a little intense. So I'll have a lot of work to do to, okay, so if I want to, I can come in here. And so if there's an area like this that I want to pick up some of the pigment, I can do that with, see how that brush is just picking that up? I'm putting a lot of alcohol down. And for instance, over here, is that on screen? Mm-hmm. That area? Yeah, it is. Okay.
Yes.
So I could take something like this, put some alcohol on it, dry my brush off, and see how I can lighten it. But I can also do that with my, I can also come in and do that with Pastel on top afterwards as well. So you have it again. Pastel is so malleable and easy to maneuver. Now let's go up here to this lighter area here. I love the light coming along here immediately. It's like, oh yeah, you know, and that was never my intent. Take a look at what happens when that light just went in there. It's, that was really, that intent did not show up for me until I did this sketch. You know, until I started to do these sketches here and I saw this streak of light. I never even saw it until I started doing the sketch. And when you're doing the sketch, you're starting to think about, okay, how is this going to work? How am I going to make this thing work? So let's see. There's some stuff that I've lost up in here. I could just pick up some of my pastels. There's a dark edge in here that I've lost some of it. I could come back in and reestablish some of that that's going on in here. That area is very important, and that makes a big difference right there. You can't see it because it's damp and it's reflecting funny on the screen right now. Wow. I have a lot more time left than I thought I was going to have, because this is where I was going to stop. I guess I could keep going with this a little bit. How you guys doing?
Sure.
I'm Still awake?
Great.
All right. Because I was going to, the way we're going to do this is have you, for your homework, take those sketches or take those photographs that I gave you, or your own, of Venice, and take it through to this point, and then let me critique your underpaintings. So I could take this through a little bit further right now and tell you what I'm going to do. Let me just put in another, think of your questions, okay? What kind of questions you might have. Let me put maybe another 15 minutes into this. And so one of the things I'm going to do right now is I'm going to come back in and reestablish
Liz?
my crop marks.
Liz?
Yeah.
We lost your canvas.
Lost what?
The picture.
Your
painting.
picture of the canvas, your canvas camera.
This?
Yeah, the phone.
Yeah, we
your
can see
iPhone.
did.
you.
Wow.
Studio.
Huh. I wonder why. It's still going.
I don't know. Did something?
Oh, it says the host has disabled it.
What? I did not. I swear. No, I'm just sitting
I can
here.
go out. I can back out.
No, wait. I swear to you, I have not disabled it. I was just sitting here. I wasn't-
Yeah.
I
Video
mean,
because the host has disabled it. You know what? I'm going to go out and I'm going to cancel out of the meeting and
wait
come back in.
wait 1 second. Wait 1 second.
Okay.
Maybe there's something I can do to recover.
All right.
Oh my gosh.
Sure.
I'm sorry. I didn't do it. You know what? You are going to have to go out. There's nothing I can do. Oh, wait. It actually says that I haven't canceled it, that you did. It says ask.
Wow.
There it is.
Is it there?
Yes.
No.
Yes. Yes, it's there.
There it is.
Oh,
There it
there
is.
we are.
Okay.
Well done.
It
All
said
right.
to
What happens when I
ask
hit stop
you.
recording?
It said to ask you if to redo it. So I did. I just asked, and apparently you answered. Who knows? Anyway, you're all set.
Oh, baby. All right. So I'm actually gonna come in. I'm actually with bright white, so you can actually see it. I'm putting my crop marks back in. Some of them I can find, some of them I can't. So I have to kind of squint down, especially when I've got these horizontals. It's really hard to see them. So it's about right here, and about right here. And what that's going to allow me to do is come back in and, before I do anything, correct my painting. So, or my drawing. Sorry. Correct my drawing. Okay, so the main thing was this point here, which is right here, and it's over that far, and it's up right in there. So what's happened is, because of the because I washed that, I've lost that. So I'll just sometimes just take a little bit of alcohol, and I can go and do something like this to reestablish that spot there, and that comes down to there. That's fine. Wash that back down in there. This has gotten, clean that up again. I could just come in with my alcohol on a brush and reestablish that. There's a dark that I didn't notice before. There's a shadow area that's here and here. I can do this and I can do it with this. There's a lot of stuff you can do with just your brush. You know, it was darker up top here. Bring it over a little bit more. Clean things up a little bit. Just check some of my, you know, these dark areas in here, there. Do I want a little bit more dark up in here? Having a little bit of fun with this darker blue here and playing around with the, you know, there's some of the architecture that's going on in here. Just and the nice thing about doing something like this is the blue that's down here. By bringing it up into here, it's actually, I don't want to do that, but it moves that color around a little bit. And I'm going to move some of it up into these plants. So now I've got this blue, little bit of blue that's showing up in here, which I kind of like. And there's a blue that's along this top edge. That would just get cropped off if anything got framed. So where am I with everything? I may take and throw a darker edge, that scratchy blue, which is my darkest color. I may throw that edge in here because this boat is going to be a little darker up at the top edge of this. Get a little lighter as it goes down around the corner. So, and here's my guy with his hand and his head. Actually, his head's upright a little bit more, but I don't want the focus to be on him so much. Value-wise, that will not happen. So just to show you where things are going to go, the next stage is to start getting my, figuring out my lightest light and my darkest dark. So my lightest light is pretty close to white. And so just to give you a sense of how much bandwidth this has, you know, that comes down along here, right down into the water. This is lighter, this is darker. And let's see, this comes across about right in here. So that shows you how much lighter I can go with this. I can even get this is a piece of really white. That's my whitest white right there. And it shows you that this has been built up to give me all sorts of interesting opportunities for making this area, these areas look like bricks. But that's not for today's lesson at all. And oh, see something, here's another tangent. Take a look at this. See how that boat comes up like this? And then the tip of this is actually at the bottom of that light area. And the way to fix that is to just take the tip of this boat up into there, just that much. See? Once that dries, now that is going to, now that boat sits in front. Makes all the difference in the world. Just little teeny tiny things like that make a huge difference. So, you know, there are a few things that I'm, okay, I was looking at my images here and saying, wow, is this much, you know, usually windows line up. We're pretty good here, but then this is so much narrower than this. But then when I look at this, it's actually this, this window wants to be just a tad bit wider. And it could even come over a little bit further so that it doesn't look like it's lined up. I'm going to bring it over even further. I'm just mucking around here. So I don't want to get into too much work that I want to do next week. So again, questions, anybody?
I have a question, Liz.
Yeah.
What are your favourite pastels to use for the underpainting? Because I know that I've had trouble before, and I know when we were working together, I had trouble with some of my softer ones. Are you using mainly harder pastels?
I actually use my softer pastels because the softer pastels. Let me just show you. A softer pastel here, and let me get a harder pastel. Let me show you a, for instance, a Giraud.
Yeah.
Similar color, okay?
Yeah.
So when I take the, my dirty alcohol, and I move this around, see how that just moves everywhere?
Yeah.
It moves.
Yes.
If I go to take that and put that on a harder pastel, do you see? I can't get that to move. And look what happened to it. It just disappeared.
Right. So I think mainly I had Great Americans, and they were becoming quite claggy and clayey almost, I think, and I had trouble with them. So that might be my problem, that I don't have the right softer ones.
It's and you know, the other thing is try using water.
Oh, okay.
And see how they behave on water. What is the paper you're working on?
I have been using Colourfix, which I quite like. So that's the one that I use the most, because obviously that's readily available here, being Australian.
Right.
So yeah, I'll have a play before I try anything and see which work best.
Yeah. Linda, do you have the am I pinned now? So I'm looking at
Yes,
not
you
my
are.
picture.
Yes, you are.
Okay. All right. This is where you really do need to play around. I know that I also know that your alcohol is slightly different over there.
Yeah.
So the other
and
thing
that could
is, it could be, and that's why I say try water, try vodka. But try water and see if that helps. The most important thing with the what I have found is that, so if you get into any of your student grade pastels, pastels that don't have as much pigment load, might have a lot of filler.
No, I don't.
What happens tends to wash out. Now that's not the case here. That's just because that is a that's a harder pastel.
Yeah.
It did not have as much color in it, just because it was harder. The softer pastels tend to have more pigment, and then you have the ability to be able to move it around and make it and play with it a little bit, whereas this doesn't give you much to do. Saving pieces of paper, little scraps that I cut off, use them to I'll just use them to practice on, and if I'm getting ready to do an important painting, If I'm looking for instance, especially some of my skies, I'm looking for a certain like purpley gray blue color, I'll do tests on here to make sure I've got the right colors before I invest on doing it on my actual painting. You know, I'll do that sort of thing. I also, I don't know if you can see all these things over here. I mean, these are all my, these are all pieces of pastel that are small, that got to be too small for me to work with. And I've got these jars and I've put them in color families. And sometimes I'll actually just take alcohol and rub it around inside of here, and I'll paint with that. Or where's my, there's my mortar and pestle. If I'm looking for a specific color, I will actually grind up some of the smaller pieces to make the color I want. I'm always looking for different colors than I've got. And I'll make a paste, you know, like something like this. And then I will come in and, you know, put some alcohol on a brush, dip it into this, you know, and then I'll paint with it.
Cool.
Yeah.
You know, especially when it's coming to doing some of my underpaintings. And there's a specific color that I'm looking for. And you know, Terry Ludwig's even sent me from when he makes his pastel, use that pastel to remake a pastel. Whenever I finish a painting, this is my current jar right now, and I'm just getting started with a new jar of dust. And this is the dust that comes off of my easel, goes into here. And someday when I don't have anything to do, I will take this and clean out my mortar and pestle. I'll throw that into my mortar and pestle. And you need distilled water, not alcohol, no other anything, because this already has binder in it. Now there's got probably 5 or 6 or 7 different brands of pastel in this dust, but there's still the binder exists in this, that all you need is the distilled water, and you throw it in there and you roll it up. I mean, you just drip it in. It's like making frosting. You have to be careful. You don't want to get too much liquid, or else it gets too fluidy. You want to get it to be really a clay substance, and you pull it out, roll it, make it into whatever you want, and put it on a piece of something that's not porous. Like, don't put it on a paper towel, put it on a tin foil or a piece of saran wrap or something. Let it air dry. You'll get the most beautiful mid-tone neutral colors. Although I'm saving these, I've been painting for so long, I'm separating the colors out so that I can make yellows and blues and greens. And it's a little chemistry.
Great.
Having fun with that. But you know, definitely check out some of the newer papers, the newer pastels. And I don't know whether you have you ever gotten an order from Dakota Pastels?
I have. My first order came from there, but it's very expensive postage to come from them. So Soft Pastels Australia has quite a good range. They have Terry Ludwig's and Diane Townsend and Blue Earth, and so
the only reason I was asking is because they have sampler sets, which I think are fascinating, because they'll send do 8x10 sheets of paper, all sorts of different types of paper, and also different pastels, different manufacturers, pastels, so that you can actually try them out. People always want to know, you know, what pastel are you using? What paper are you using? It's the thing about there being, oops, oh dear, there goes my camera.
Uh-oh.
Oh, God, I dropped it on the floor. We will ignore that. We don't need that picture anymore. Anyhow, the good thing about having, there is really no formula as to what, oh, is it not, you're not getting any
You're not
sound.
plugged in.
Hear me now?
That's better. Mm.
Can you
Yeah. No.
No.
Oh, God. Microphone. Can you hear me now?
No.
No. Well,
No.
we can see you.
Yeah, you could just use the ambient noise and turn on the sound from your computer. Liz, can you hear me?
Video. How about that?
No.
No,
No.
Liz, just use
No.
the sound like you were before from your computer. Just
Just-
unplug everything.
All right.
There you go. Use
That's
that.
I'm back.
yeah.
I told you I'm a klutz. Those are my elbows. It's like, you know, I just knocked the stupid thing right off the, oh, God. There's no formula. And I'm, you know, during this time period where we're locked in our studios or at home, I'm delving back into things that I haven't done in a long time, and I'm playing a little bit more. And so I'm playing with different materials. I'm, you know, things that I've said, oh, never do that. For instance, I always said, you know, when you're doing an underpainting, than the paper. So if you were working with a mid-tone paper, you don't go darker than that mid-tone. Well, I'm starting to paint.
You're fading away again, Liz.
Unmute.
Uh-huh.
All right, am I back?
Yes.
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 Now we can hear you
I'm
really well.
Putting it in front of me
There you
instead
go.
of in my pocket.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, until I knock this off. So if you were to get, you know, different people, their hand is different. I had a student who went out and bought the entire set of Blue Earth pastels and took workshop with me. She's very heavy-handed. And so she would put one mark down and the paper would fill in. And so I said to her, Rita, oh, excuse me, I shouldn't say names. Anyways, Dorito, this is just, these are not a good match for you, these pastels. Before I knew it, she turned around and just gave it away to somebody.
Wow.
Oh.
It's like, but they were not a good match for her. They really weren't, because her hand was too heavy, but her hand, and I shouldn't say too heavy, the way she applied the pastel was part of her style. Those particular pastels were too soft for her particular style. Now, would her style change someday? Sure. Her style might change someday, but I'm not in the business of trying to make you paint like me or paint like somebody else. I want you to paint like you paint. So that's where saying this is the formula isn't going to work. And then papers change. And that's another thing that's kind of scary, is that you finally find the materials that work the best for you, and then something happens and they close down, or they lose a component and they can't make the material the way they want to, or like your favorite restaurant, they get tired of it and decide to close up shop. You know, some of the stories out there, you know, the Rocher pastels, if Isabelle Rocher hadn't given up a career in biology and science to pursue making pastels, which had been passed down and down and down to a great aunt or an aunt who was elderly, and if Isabelle had not decided to take up the challenge and the mantle, we would have lost a pastel that's been made since the 1700s. And now take a look at them. They've got brand new life because of Isabelle and her partner Margaret, who are making them by hand in Paris. Terry Ludwig, we survived a change with the Ludwig pastels. Thank God for Jeff Ludwig, you know, because what would have happened to the Ludwig pastels? You know, Unison's bounced around. Unison, John Hersey in England started those, and then Richardson took them over, Jack Richardson, and then now they've gone back to the family and they're back to being made in England. And I don't know the exact details of what happened, but Richardson created another line of pastels that were more of a competitor to the Unisons. And so now the Unisons are, but we still have them, which they're a marvelous pastel because they kind of fit right in there as kind of a medium pastel, not the hard, not the soft, and but they have a wonderful pigment load. So that is my favorite pastel to recommend for beginners, is to work with the Unison pastels, and they're pretty readily available. So, but I'm dying to try out this new paper. I'm looking at that and saying, it's awfully white. I may have to knock. I got a little carried away with that. I may have to knock that down. That's my love of edges and lights and sharp contrast. That may be just a little bit too light. Let me show you one thing. The Terry Ludwig, the eggplant purple, is really one of the darkest purples out there. And can you see that, Mark? I don't know if you can. I don't think you can see it. Maybe I'll make it bigger. Can you see that, Mark? Okay, so that is a dark purple. That's the darkest dark that I use. And you can see I didn't even get that close. So I'm probably on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being white, 10 being black. That is a 9. This is a 9. That's a 10. Or this is an 8.5, and that's a 9.5. Because if I actually had black, I could show you. And I'm just gonna, wipe it out. It's gone. But so what I'm gonna ask you to do in the next week, and you all got my handout, my printout with all the instructions on it, is that I want you to take your images and pick out a couple of sketches. Spend some time with it. You don't have to go. That nice thing about this is that we're breaking this apart into 3 weeks, so it's not like you have to do a complete painting in 1 week. But spend some time with the images. This is a simple shape sketch here, where I'm just pulling out the shapes. Then I'm drawing it again, but I'm applying value. I would prefer that you do it this way as opposed to what I did with my sketches. This is kind of my own shorthand. This is, this has the simple shape sketch underneath with the value on top. But I would love to see you just start with the simple shapes, use the crop marks, okay? Crop it and do a whole bunch of these. Figure out what composition you really want to work with. And the nice thing is while you're doing these things, your brain is talking to you, and your things are being, you're being told things like, God, what am I going to do with that area? Let me see if I can find a couple sketches where I was working something out. I do this all the time. See if I can find one. Okay, so, I did these in gouache. I was trying to figure out a composition, and, a tall vertical, or this one has more of this shadow showing. This one doesn't have as much of it. This is a square. Where do I want to go? You can do it with gouache. You can do it with the black and white. These were actually just value studies without any of the line work. And again, looking at patterns of light and dark, what are the movements of these shapes? And as you're doing these sketches, it'll tell you which one you really want to invest in. Then go ahead, get your paper started, and take your painting all the way through to this point. So I want you to stop just like I did at the underpainting. And then by next Tuesday, the end of the day, send me an email with a picture, a photograph you've taken. So just like the screen share, I just showed you a few, of my images. We'll go through each person's piece and we'll critique them. And then I'll go on back up to this. I won't touch it. I'll go back up onto this, take this through to the next round. And that'll be next week.
Fabulous.
Great.
Okay.
Awesome.
Right. You want to see any of our, like if we're looking at, say, 2 photographs and we're doing multiple sketches of 2 choices, do you want to see what we were considering doing, or you just want to see what?
If you get really hung up, send me an email. I don't mind. I only have the 6 of you, and actually right now I only have the 5 of you. So if you get really hung up on something, you can go ahead and send it to me. However, day, because you'll come back and see things with different eyes, especially once you start getting into it and starting to say, okay, I am going to be committing to doing a painting on Venice, and you may dream about it, you may sleep about it, all that sort of thing. And what I really want to do is to encourage you to have a relationship with the image that you're doing. That's why it's much, much better if you've got your own images to work from than if you're using somebody else's images. But if you haven't been to Venice and you don't have pictures, then definitely use these. But I find I can't even work from my husband's photos, because even though we've taken pictures of the same thing, his intent behind the camera and taking that picture, he's seeing something different, and that there's an intangible that's coming through that image. So before you immediately send it to me, do the sketches and see if you can solve it yourself.
Right.
If not, write me.
Any other questions?
Anybody else?
No, I just assume that it's okay. We've seen each other's emails, so if we want to follow up with an email or something like that, it's okay to communicate.
Is that okay with everybody?
Yes.
Yeah, fine with me.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for asking that, Mary. That's good to have that straightened out. Okay. Well, guys, when's the last time you had homework?
I have homework all the time, Liz.
Oh, yes, you do, Kathy. That's
I do.
true.
Yes, I do. But that's okay. This is good homework.
Yeah,
This is good homework. And, you know, it's God, I wish somebody would give me homework. It's like, although I do. I've got home.
You give yourself homework.
I
sure.
you know, you've seen the fruits of
That's
my homework. I've been working on this. Yeah.
I have a
So,
question.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're just breaking up. So
I know. It's breaking up is hard to do, but I'm
I
managing
know.
it. In that photo that you took, I think, and maybe I'm wrong, but is that a bird that's right at the end of the gondola? It looks like it's on the ramp, but I don't think so. And I want to see and I can't zoom in, unfortunately. You know what? We can do it after we hang up because I'm curious to know if that's
Now,
actually
hold on a second.
a pigeon. Because it's not something
That-
like
that's the end of the gondolas, isn't it?
no, I mean on the back end where it looks like it's in the arch in the little
Hold on a second.
garage there, but I don't think so. I think it's
I don't know.
zero in right on the back of his gondola.
Yeah, right there.
Oh.
Yeah.
No,
It's not.
I
Here,
don't see
hold
a
on.
pigeon.
it looked like it.
Oh, there's one flying above it. You're
It is.
right.
It
And
is.
it looks like a
yes,
shadow.
this
Oh, right
thing.
there,
I
yeah.
don't know what that is.
Oh, okay.
That's a pigeon because I could tell by his little red feet.
Well,
Yeah.
you're
Oh, good
right.
God. He's flying by.
You never
but
saw that?
He's bigger than the man.
I know.
Well, I
I was
couldn't.
thinking,
I
why
couldn't-
isn't she saying anything about him?
That's amazing.
Oh, that's too funny.
That is amazing.
I thought that was like something laying on this doorway,
Yeah,
in the
no.
doorway, but I couldn't figure out why it was out of focus.
right, exactly, because it's a pigeon.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Good eye, Linda.
You're going to put that pigeon in, are you, Liz?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll just do a little.
Yeah.